Welcome to Nitpicking Nerds, and guess what? We're not perfect.
These are cards we got wrong.
Bye, Amber. I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, Beezy, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. Daily videos. If you want to support daily videos, you can go to the description. Patreon.com is the best way to support the channel.
Yep, you're giving us money directly. If you want to do this indirectly, another way to do it would be to go to our TCG Player affiliate link in the description below. You just click the link down there. Go to the website, buy whatever Magic cards you were going to purchase anyway. Spend $0 extra, and the nerds get a kickback, and we appreciate it.
And if you're looking to sleeve those Magic cards, you're going to use Dragon Shield. That's just a fact. That's the reality we're living in. So if you want to go to their site, in the description, we have an EU or US link, and if you use the link and buy stuff you were marketed to buy anyway, we get a kickback on the order.
Yes.
And I bet you thought they were thinking, it's my birthday, and I didn't get a birthday wish. No. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today. We got to get into a video. The Nitpicking Nerds are not 100% right, and we are always open to changing our opinion on a card when it comes up. So these are 20 cards that, well, one of us, or both of us, in some cases, just got wrong from the get-go.
Yeah, I think it's important to admit when you make a mistake or change your reasoning when new evidence and stuff comes along. So we're putting our best foot forward. We're setting an example, I guess.
You know, I mean, a lot of these are, when you take a card and you look at it like right away and you're like, okay, how good is this card? In a vacuum, it's like, well, you make judgments and you go, I don't know. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're right. But then you play with the card and you discover new things. Admit it, because changing your opinion is good and healthy. So we got 20 here. The first 6 are 3 I got wrong and 3 BZ got wrong. First one's from me. It's DSpark. It's a black. It's a white. For an instant. Exile a permanent with converted or mana value now 4 or greater. That's really high. And what I've come to discover from playing this card, I put it in my Liesa deck when I had a Liesa deck, and you just sit there and you go, man, yeah, there's a lot of things. There's some things that can destroy, and there's some good things that can destroy. But I'm missing a lot of great targets. There's a Ristic Study. You know, there's so many good 1 to 3 mana permanents that you're just missing out on killing.
Yeah, it's not Anguish Making. Anguish Making, I think, is definitely a step above this. It just hits whatever you could possibly want to hit. I wasn't super high on DSpark either. I've only tested it a couple times, and I have noticed a little bit where it's like, all right, we need to hit something clunky or bulkier.
Yeah, I mean, when it does its job, it's really efficient and good at doing its job.
Yeah, when the threat is expensive and you were going to have to kill it anyway, you're saving mana. But then if it's anything else, you're kind of losing mana.
Yeah, exactly. The smothering task, like, I got to answer that, or I got to answer the Bolas' Citadel. It's like it's really good at answering those kind of threats, but it always feels so bad when you can just be playing some other spell that hits basically any type, like a Generous Gift. If you're playing this over Generous Gift, it's like, yikes, there's a Ristic Study. If this was Generous Gift, I could just answer it.
And then if we're trying to hit creatures, we got other better black spells that, well, I guess we'll talk about more later.
Yeah, this card's not, I want to say, I think DSpark is a good budget card. I think once you move off a budget, you're gone. You just get this card out of your deck.
Yeah, I don't think it's there. I haven't mentioned this before, but we're going to mention it again. Hopefully this is going to reach almost everybody at this point. But we have toned back our power levels a little bit. So we're not playing Soul Ring, really. We're not really playing fast mana, and we're not going for infinite combos. We're kind of just going to let our preferences kind of ebb and flow. And now we're kind of in the, let's play some jankier, more on-the-board decks. So that's kind of what we're working with now, for the foreseeable future. We'll let you know when we get back up there with more competitive stuff.
Exactly. We're going to change how we, you don't play Commander the same all the time. Like, there's people talk about arms races, but we're kind of doing the opposite.
Legs race.
We kind of arms race to that's what I meant. Yeah, we kind of arms race to in the 8-9 power level. Now we're like, all right, let's tone it back just a little bit. Let's pull those Soul Rings out. Let's make it a little more combat focused. And it's the exact opposite. So we're not going to mention that going forward in too many videos, but now that you know, BZ, you could talk about this card.
Well, yeah, we want everything to be in context. So you always have to have a context for how we're evaluating stuff. We're going to tell you every single time. The next one is Wurmcoil Engine. And all right, we're in the combat meta. And I just kind of wrote this card off as whatever, total filler, 6-drop. But the lifelink is actually pretty great. When we're talking about when an infinite combo basically isn't going to happen in the game, it changes a lot. And this card ends up being, I just kind of want to see it all the time.
What's really interesting about, like you're mentioning, is we would evaluate cards and basically this card fell way down our list because, we didn't want it in our metas. if people mention in the comments, like, I like Wurmcoil Engine, you'd be like, no, you're crazy. Why do you like Wurmcoil Engine? But it's like, well, there's a lot of different metas. And when you move to the meta like we're playing now, Wurmcoil Engine's great. It has been a factor in infinite games we've played since we started doing this. Just so many different times you end up like, here's a Wurmcoil Engine. Here's, I'll clone your Wurmcoil Engine. I'll reanimate your Wurmcoil Engine. I'll take control of your Wurmcoil Engine. It's like, it's weird how this like 6-drop that's kind of clunky and it's all right, just kind of warps these 6 to like maybe low 7 power level games.
Yeah, so Wurmcoil was always as powerful as it is now. We're not saying it got stronger or weaker or anything. It was always as powerful as it is now, which is, hey, it's pretty good in decks where you don't have to worry about some of the more competitive stuff and combat matters. So when we're up here, we're just not going to play it. Like, we're just looking at it like, what is this supposed to do for me? But now when we're down here, we're like, oh, I can use this.
Yeah, absolutely. But Wurmcoil is a sweet card. I've just been super happy with that card every time. Next, a one I got wrong, and I got to own it completely.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't just lower power level.
Humble pie.
This is humble pie. It's deflecting SWAT. A while ago, we were doing some list. I can't remember what exactly the list was, but I remember
been top cards of the year.
Yeah, it might have been. And we were talking about the counter one that was free from the set, Fierce Guardianship, and we were talking about
Deadly Rollick.
And I said, I'm like, all right, I think those two are great, but I think deflecting SWAT's just garbage. I don't really care about it. I don't really want to play it. I was wrong.
I was like, really?
I was just straight up wrong. I mean, I thought the spell was just super medium, that the effect was too narrow. I mean, we had like for example, we had like Bolt Bend that often cost 1, and I think that card sucks. And I know people do play it, and some people like it. I think that card still sucks. When you move this effect from 1 mana to 0 mana, it makes the world of difference. It is an amazing card.
Yeah, it's very, very good. I mean, it's not busted or anything. I'm not like, oh, deflecting SWAT. It's just like, oh, geez, deflecting SWAT. Like, going to change the course of this entire game. All right, this next one is me, Spark Double. I looked at it and I was like, this is pretty sick. 2 of any commander, like, this card's great. This card stinks. It is like not a good clone. You only get your side, so you don't get the full versatility of a clone, and you're still paying full cost for it. I could not care less about the +1/+1 counter. So unless you're doing specifically legend kooky stuff, this is like not even going to make your deck ever.
Yeah, and you can copy a Planeswalker, but that matters almost never.
Copy the worst type? No!
And, I mean, this is a really bad Sakashima. Like, a really bad version of Sakashima.
Which didn't exist yet.
It didn't exist yet. I remember, because this just goes back, I remember arguing against it. I'm like, I don't think this card should be on the list. But, you know, and like, our opinions differ, and we meet in the middle. It's
didn't I argue this above Bolas's Citadel? If you want to see some of the other things we got wrong, there's a part 1. This is part 2. So I had argued this above Bolas's Citadel.
Yeah, he somehow got Bolas's Citadel was 9 on that list.
I must be very convincing.
8 was Spark Double. I mean, I'm willing to compromise. I'm not gonna argue tooth and nail. Otherwise, you're never gonna get videos, guys. We're just gonna be arguing over an opinion that we can change later.
They broke the streak. What happened? We were just arguing.
We were arguing the whole time.
In the studio.
All right.
Baleful Mastery. What is that?
Well, it's a 4 mana, exile a target creature, or you can pay 1 and a black, and you exile the same thing, exile a creature, but you make someone draw a card. I think it's a cool political tool. I think it's decent, and I think it does its effect pretty well. But I think it's like the 10th best black removal spell, which is the real issue with this card. Yeah, I could see it on a budget or with a restriction, or you don't want to overlap cards in decks. Like, I play Deadly Relic in this deck. I don't want to play it in this deck. So I could see it making those type of lists. It's just not very good, and you just never need to go. It's too far down. It's just too far down the list of black removal, and I just don't think you should touch it.
The card's fine, but we have a lot of fine cards. It's competing with the first 3 that come to my head in black removal. It's like Deadly Relic, 0 mana. Snuff Out, 0 mana. They're doing the same thing as this. They're taking out a creature, and I don't have to make anyone draw a card. And then the next one is probably like Soul Shatter, just off the top of my head. That's a 3-for-1, takes out their best thing. This is nowhere near any of that, and you don't need a ton of like 1-for-1 creature spot removal, so this just never makes it. Yeah, it just doesn't make the cut. And as much as I was hyped on it and thought it was really good, is as much as I think it's just kind of never making my decks now. If this was 0 mana and you could pay an alternate cost of 2 to make somebody draw, then it would be really good. Yes. It'd be better than Deadly Relic. All right, up next we have Tezzeret's Gambit. What's this one, BZ? Yeah, this is a card back in the day. I was pretty high on this. Like, we're talking 2012, 2013, like it just came out, and we're like, proliferate. There's no cards that say that. And I think that opinion just carried on too far. Like, it was fine back then. Commander was way different, But I just kept thinking like, yeah, Tezzer's Gambit, totally fine. 2015, totally fine. 2016, totally fine. And then I just at some point realized this is not a card I'm ever going to play. As we got more proliferates, like Flux Channelers, the blue one, and Evolution Sage, the green one, just bury this. I'm never playing this card anymore.
So proliferate one time is a very minimal effect. It's
Right.
okay. It's,
Divination is not a commander playable card.
Exactly. This is Divination with the slightest upside. Divination is so far from if you're not on like the strictest, tightest budget and building like around maybe you have like $20 budget. Maybe Divination makes it.
Where I actually see this card, where I think this card is passable, is all of the decks that just don't even really care about the proliferate. We're talking like just make the spell cost 0, like reduce it by 3, and you get a 0 mana draw 2. Like that's sick. And actually, Mizzix does care about the proliferate, so it's like the best card ever in that deck. But that's what I'd be looking at.
Yeah, but it just doesn't go anywhere else. I would avoid it. If I think of Tezzer's Gambit, I would say, no, this doesn't go in my deck.
Yeah.
Now, if I start with a deck and I'm like, oh, I need some proliferate in card. Oh, I found this and it works out perfectly. Then I want it.
Well, it's like break the Phyrexian mana, don't break the proliferate because it's not worth it.
All right, and for the rest of these, it was a mutual. We both went, hey, this card is good or this card's bad, and we're on the opposite opinion now. First one, Thassa's Oracle. We went, this card's good when it came out. It's a pretty decent card, and we're totally thumbs up for it. We didn't realize it was format warping, game breaking, gonna change CEDH forever card.
To the point that like people don't play this because it's kind of lame, even in the decks that aren't super competitive. And I remember because we watched this, I was like, yeah, you could play Thassa's Oracle and Leveler, and I'm like, that's its own thing, whatever. And I guess it just ended up being something that more people decide to do. Like in my head, it was kind of like, okay, you can cast Yockel if you want, but it's like that's not something people are gonna do. But I guess people want to be doing the Leveler Thoracle or the Demonic Consultation Thoracle more, and obviously CDH. They love it.
Because it just wins. I mean, like, you talk about the Yockel hops, and, like, that's okay. And like, but usually that just slows the game down and doesn't end to a win. This is a win. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, the goal of Commander is to win, but especially in CDH, where it's the whole goal is to win. Like, that's what you're doing. You're building your deck to do that as good as you can make it. Thassa's Oracle is a total house. I mean, this card is, like you said, format warping. I guess I said it. Format warping.
Yeah, changes a lot of things. And a lot of people are calling for it to be banned. Next up is Wild Growth, and this kind of just wasn't on our radar for as long as it needed to be. This is just kind of one of the best ways to ramp in green. Always has been. Doesn't really even matter what you're doing. But it took us a while to get on the train, but now we're fully on the train. So we've adjusted, but we got it wrong at first because we just should have been playing this for years.
Yeah, I mean, in any deck that doesn't necessarily care about your creature count, this is one of the best ramp spells in all of green, which is pretty crazy to say.
On any turn except for turn 1, it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, exactly. This card is really, really good, and it is just insanely strong ramp. It's as good, if not better, than Mana Dorks a lot of the time, and that's saying something because Mana Dorks are insanely strong.
And you're not going to see a lot of the land destruction that's going to punish you for this. It's also just a Wild Growth. It's not like a Nykthos or a Cabal Coffers.
I'll strip mine you all day. I'll get you busy.
And you're going to lose to the other rare lands. How about Garricks Uprising? We didn't even read this card barely when it came out.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was another one, just like Wild Growth, I was saying, just eluded our radar.
Well, we've seen this before. It sucks. Like Elemental Bond, Garrick's Pack Leader.
It's like they're these medium cards.
Colossal Majesty.
Yeah, they're cards I'm not super interested. I've seen them before. It's an okay effect, but it's not great. Garricks Uprising is the one that goes from this is an okay effect to this is a great effect.
Like this is the one that's playable, and we missed it.
Yeah, and we just totally missed it. It's 3 mana, and it comes down. You draw if you control creature 4 or greater power. And then whenever one enters after that, you also draw. And on top of that, what makes this card like extra good is your creatures just have trample. It's just extra text in this card. Doesn't matter what order you play this in, because if you already have a 4-power creature, play it, draw a card. Don't have a 4-power creature? Okay, I can deploy it and wait, and I'll start playing creatures after.
Yeah, it removes a lot of the awkwardness of those enchantments. And it just makes this like, it's a great top deck late. It's a great play early. You can just kind of do whatever with it. And it's going to deal extra damage when you just pump up your creatures. This is a good card.
Yeah, good. Exactly.
I mean, it's not busted. It's just a good card that we didn't recognize properly.
Very good.
This is a card I just didn't even notice, didn't pay any attention to until we started playing the on-the-board decks. And then once you're doing that, Authority of the Consuls is freaking annoying. Whenever they play a creature, it's going to enter tapped, and you gain a life. So it slows down haste, it slows down blocking, makes combat lopsided in your favor, and the life just adds up. And I like this more than like the Soul Sisters because it's not going to die. It's not going to get swept away by all the random stuff because it's an enchantment. This thing just gains you like 20 life every time.
Yeah, I think both sides. So Soul Sisters, I think, are just good. So I want to say that. So Soul Sisters are good, especially in life gain decks. I can take advantage of that. This combines another ability that is underestimated and that I always never think is anything. Things entering tap. It's actually an incredibly strong thing. It means that those creatures can't block for a turn. There's no haste. It is an underrated ability, and we've hyped up Blind Obedience. We love that card. We've hyped it up beyond belief.
Even in higher power.
But Authority is just extremely good. It gains an incredible amount of life, and if you're not worried about people comboing off on you, that life is super important. I will say this, gaining life is something that I didn't care about when we were playing higher power, like we mentioned. Gaining life in combat metas where you're not going to see infinite combos
gimme
is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, it's just going to extend the game for you. This is one, these aren't all specific to we're playing lower power, but this is one that I'm going to try in higher power when we inevitably go back. I want to see if it can hold up. The next one is Obliet. This is a card that I think is probably just generally good in the entire format, and we didn't even think about talking about it. It's 1 black for an enchantment, and it's going to phase out the creature it's attached to, which can be a commander. So when you phase out a commander, it doesn't exist. So much like Kenra's transformation, but in black, this lets you just snipe a commander and say, you don't get this until you deal with Obliet.
So for me, I know exactly why I overlooked this card. I equated it to an O-Ring. I think Oblivion Ring effects are extremely bad as they re-allow ETBs. They let them put their commander in the command zone. It doesn't really do anything special, and I really don't like O-Ring effects at all. But Obliet is not an O-Ring.
Right.
It phases the commander out, which means they can't recast it. It's trapped. It's you literally treat it like it doesn't exist.
Can't sacrifice it.
Until Obliet is gone. I am just a big fan of this guy. I think the not sacrificing is such a big thing. That's like
it stops Eminence. We found out the other day.
It just stops Eminence. This card is very, very good, especially because comparing it to like, what do you think of Obliet if you were like, I would have been like, I don't even care. That card's nothing. Don't think about it for commander. But it's like, no, it's actually pretty dang good.
Yeah, I think if you're not casting this on a commander, you're getting a bad deal. So
I agree.
Try to do that.
I mean, but it's versatile. It's also nice.
In an emergency, you can play a bad removal spell, but mostly we're just shutting down commanders.
Yeah.
It's just like a mean card like Nevermore.
Up next, we had a card we were very high on when it was first spoiled. It's Toski, Bearer of Secrets, and he's very similar to a couple of effects we've seen before. There's the Bind and the Fastest that say when you hit, draw a card. There's now the Ikoria one. What is the Reconnaissance mission that say when you hit, draw a card, and Toski reads that same thing, but it's in green and it's a creature. Now, green loves creatures, absolutely loves creatures, so we were very high on this card. I've noticed that 1/1's Indestructibles, because I also played Brash Taunter, just don't survive very long. They're extremely easy to remove. The indestructibility is just not good enough on a 1/1, so I'm pretty off of this card. I don't put it in many of my decks anymore. I tried it for a while. Like, I had it in 3-4 different decks, and it always underperforms, sadly.
Yeah, it'll get swept away by Cyclonic Rift, Tragic Arrogance, Toxic Deluge. I play Yawgmoth in like every one of my decks, and that's not gonna be a good matchup. So Toski, when it first came out, I was like, yeah, okay, this is like freaking sweet. We don't really have this effect on like creatures in green, and those other 2 lines in the beginning look so flashy and interesting. It just played out a little bit worse than that. I don't think this is a card that we should have been playing in our higher levels, and we don't really go to it anymore.
I still don't even think I'm not playing it in my combat decks. Like, I have a Helena Lana deck. Like, it carries counters decently. I'm still not interested. I just don't think the card does enough. I'm just it's sad because Toski I thought was very incredible. Now I just think, yeah, there's probably some decks that want it, but not many.
I do think the attacking thing kind of holds him back a little too, because if you could just leave us on defense, it's a little bit better, but he has to just send in.
Yeah, and he doesn't get through because he's a 1/1.
Never going to get through.
He just, a 2/2 blocks it forever.
Well, I'll just chump it with a 1/1. I'm not giving you a card.
Yeah, exactly. Next, another card that we started exploring, and we're like, this could be pretty good.
It looks so good. What a disappointment.
Yeah, it really is. It's Wandering Archaic. It's 5 mana for a 4/4. It has back text that we're not even going to read, but the front text. Yeah, the front text, which is the actual thing we care about here, says that whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, copy it unless they pay 2. They just don't cast anything good into it ever.
Yep.
And it doesn't hit. It only hits 2 types. So they're just going to play their creatures, their artifacts, their enchantments. They're going to play all that And then, if they have 2 extra mana, then they'll play their instant or sorcery.
And what the problem ends up being is you give them a choice. So you don't have to cast instant or sorceries. And then when you cast them, you can pay 2 if you want. It's not like, it's not unstoppable. It's just, hey, what do you feel? It's like going up to your opponent, like, what do you feel like doing this turn, buddy? You could play your commander, or you could have a draw spell. It's like, I'll play my commander because it doesn't really matter right now because the game's in the early stages. And then you're like, oh, 5 mana 4/4, huh?
Yeah, I'm super down on this card. I have it in my play my opponent's stuff deck. And I don't even think that deck is my worst deck. It doesn't have, like, its theme is play my opponent's stuff, and it doesn't really do anything else. This is one of the worst cards in it. What is that?
The deck that's already bad is one of the worst cards. I think this is basically something that we should just leave in the bulk bin at this point. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a cool look, but it's not very good.
Yeah, it does not play well at all. Maybe it's a meta call. Here's another card that just looks great, and you just kind of don't end up playing it, like Baleful Mastery. This is Bonder's Enclave. It's a land, taps for colorless, or you can pay 3 and tap it. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you get to draw a card. And I was like, draw a card on a land? That's sick. Some decks will just put this in for free. But as cards just came out, this is not a card I ever play, even in the decks that can do it. First of all, War Room is such a good card. That just, like, bonked this on the head and was like, get out of my way every time you would play Bonder's Enclave. So then you have to have, like, 2 spots for it. How many colorless lands do you want? Oh, man.
One of the biggest issues for this is, how much mana do you have? So let's start there. So if you're on board, you have a couple of creatures. You want to probably advance your board state a little more. You probably don't want to spend time drawing cards. That's not what you want to be doing. And then you flip the script, you just got board wiped, you're down to like 2 cards in hand. Well, you can't actually activate it.
When you might want to.
When you might want to, because you don't have a creature on board. This card reads way better than it plays. It almost never drew me a card in the, I played it, a bunch. I had it in a couple decks, and it just never drew me a card.
Yeah, I think it's kind of not worth being a colorless land. You're better off playing a duel or some other utility land like a strip mine. All right, when Cranko Tin Street Kingpin came out, we were both like, what the heck? The Cranko was so good, and this one is just like a lame limited rare that's not going to do anything. But as we've seen it in play, like in a bunch of different decks now, this thing is always annoying, and it like kind of holds a candle to the original Cranko.
Yeah, it's only so what I like about this card over the original Cranko. The original Cranko is better in a Goblins deck.
Only.
This card is just good. Mm-hmm. It's in my Helena Alana deck. I put 2 counters on it, attack, get an extra counter the first turn. You just get 4 guys. This card just starts making an army very quickly by himself.
And if you pump him up big enough, he can't be blocked the first time. They'll have to maybe, like, they didn't have a removal spell because they didn't even know you had it if you're grieving it or something. So if he pumps up, he gets through or he gets chumped, and then you just get to do it next turn, and you have a board state in a can.
Yeah, I think one of the things about him that he's gotten a lot better since Helena Alana and Chishiro. Both of these cards are the +1/+1 counters
in red.
And this is a +1/+1 counters red card, and it's a good one. It's a really, really good one. Like you said, we looked at this card when it came out. It's like, man, Cranko was so cool, and they did my boy dirty. It's like they did him dirty.
He's clean now.
And, well, no, they didn't. This card's actually very good. It just didn't have the archetype yet.
It didn't have the home. All right, number 16. I feel like this one is like a big old asterisk next to it, but Meathook Massacre, we were pretty medium on it because, this is still one of the most overrated cards that's ever existed. It's a pretty good aristocrat effect, staple 2, a pretty bad board clear, token clear kind of thing. It ends up that the full text of it has been pretty sweet in those Board State Matters games. So, maybe we bump it up from like a C or to a C+.
No, see, I'm on like B for this card. I think this card's actively good.
Okay, so when you slow down, this gets up to like B range.
Yeah, I just think this card is good. I mean, obviously in your combo metas, this is bad, but I mean, it's just like a B. This card just performs really well. You need to, obviously, I think, like BZ's mentioned before, you really want to make sure you care about something on this card. Do you care that it's an enchantment? That's something you can care about. Do you care that this card has the aristocrats text? Okay, that's something you can care about. As long as there's something besides the board wipe here that you want. You need the life gain. Maybe you like draining your opponent's phone. All these little things. You just need to care about it enough that it's not just the board wipe. When it's just the board wipe, it sucks. But it has a lot more to it than that.
My rule is, if you're okay casting this for black, you should play it.
Yeah, I like that rule.
That is everything you just said, unfortunately, way faster.
Well, sure, fine. But whatever, I don't even care.
I wasn't bragging, I was just saying.
I mean,
for next time.
We do own that one of the reasons we were so low on this card was because it was $48 and it still is. It's like,
Well, part of when we're saying like, ugh, Meathook Massacre, it's like it's not worth $48. It still isn't worth $48. So that's part of where the UG came from. Not so much the UG at the power, 'cause it's just a fine card.
Yeah. Next card is a card that I think we poo-pooed on a lot, and we were very low on it.
I never touched this card.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually thought we were in the point of like we both thought it wasn't very good, and I built a Brea deck, and I'm like, all right, let's give it a try. And like BZ even says like, I think that card's bad. You shouldn't play it. And it's like,
I still don't know, but it's better than I gave it credit for.
It is Thopter Spy Network. It is 4 mana, and whenever an artifact hits a player, 1 or more, you draw a card. So you can draw up to 3 by hitting 3 opponents. It's performed very well, both providing artifacts that can get in with it and drawing cards. BZ destroyed my life yesterday. Like, normally, it's like, this card isn't very good, but it's like, BZ blew it up right before I went to attack, and I was like,
He was going to draw 3.
Oh, no.
And then he ended up just losing the game by a mile. This card, so I think your Brea deck is a very specific case where this thing can shine because you're making flying artifact creatures every game guaranteed. If you can do that in some other deck or Brea, I think this is actually all right. If you can reliably kind of cast this on turn 4 to 6 and get 1 to 3 cards off of it, that's when you want to play it. But so there's still some things that I'm like reserved on. Like, it's not an artifact in your artifact deck. It's Bitter Blossom effect is not what we're here for. We're kind of here for the second line of text.
But I think the Bitter Blossom effect is good when you put it.
It's tacked on, but we're not here for it.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying I think it's good in the deck. And like what I'm saying is like the decks that want it, it gives you the flyers to say you have like you can swing in those Thopters. It starts giving you Thopters. By itself, it's obviously very slow.
I just don't think that the Thopter a turn is ever going to push the needle from I'm not going to play it to I'm going to play it.
Maybe not. But I think it's
nice to have.
The fact that it's there is really nice to have. Maybe you're right about that. I think this card is just good in your artifact creature decks. Any deck, I am now convinced that any deck that wants to play the 3/3 flyer, that when it hits, like that one could draw more cards. But any deck that wants to play that 3/3 flyer should also probably play Thopter Spy Network.
Maybe I do like the 3/3 flyer. I'm sure it has a name, but I like the 3/3 flyer
Something
better because it's also an artifact.
Is it something
Research Thief?
Research Thief? That sounds
tentatively, it's that.
Yeah, it's on screen. I mean, they know what it's called.
And if it's not Research Thief, we can add it to the list of cards we were wrong about. But the name.
Well, yeah, this time it was the name. Up next, a card we were vastly wrong about. It is Guardian of Faith. 1 white for a 3/2. Enters the battlefield. You can phase out any number of other creatures you control. And I want to be very clear. I think that is the key to why I think this card is bad. It does not phase out itself. This is a slot that goes in a lot of like your white-green decks that want to protect their creatures, where you want to have a spell that can stop your creatures from dying to a board wipe or something along those lines. And this does it okay, but it always dies. What would make this good is if it phased out itself, now you have something you can flicker to keep protecting your stuff and using over and over again. But instead you just end up with a creature sorcery.
Like, what's the reason? Well, an instant. What's the reason to play this? And like, oh, a creature deck, it's another creature. It's like, not really. It's going to die every time you cast it because that's its sole function. And then just go to the graveyard. But it's not actually better than like Teferi's Protection or the free indestructible one commander that I'm also blanking on. Flawless Maneuver, which I remembered immediately. And there's just a couple other ones. Eerie Interlude's going to give you your flicker, all your ETBs again. And this thing, we thought it was great. We're like, this is one of the best effects. Like, this card kind of sucks. And I think it is partially because the word other just kills it.
It just absolutely kills it. I think that is literally the thing. I had this in my Amanatu deck, and I just was always dissatisfied with this card. I'm like, wow, this would be so much better if it was Eerie Interlude that could bounce on my creatures to Teferi's Protection that protects me forever.
Yeah.
Or any of the other. There's too many other good ones. It kind of falls down the list, kind of like Baleful Master. It's like, does this card play well? Yeah. Is this card great? No.
Yeah, this thing still, even when I'm reading it now, it reads well. It just does not play well. It does not work.
I think we gave it like a B when we first like talked about it.
How about like a D?
Exactly. I think this card's just a D. You just don't need it.
It's good to know. I'm glad we tested this enough though to now where we know. Don't always jump on this type of effect. Like, let's be skeptical of it. And the word other sucks.
I was like, put a creature on it? Come on, yeah.
Let's go. But they didn't do it. They didn't fully do it. They gave us another.
Close.
So, number 19, because we've been numbering these the whole time. Nightmare Shepherd, 2 black for an enchantment creature. It's a 4/4. And then one of your non-token things dies. You can exile it, and you get a little clone of it that's a 1/1. I remember liking it. For some reason, I have more memories of you loving it.
There's video evidence if you want to figure out who liked it more.
Check the tapes.
Yeah. So, regardless of any of that, Nightmare Shepherd looks kind of decent on paper. I think with this card, absolutely falls off to the point of like, where am I ever playing this? Is I don't want to exile my cards from my graveyard in decks that like this effect. Sure, I get the dies trigger, and like I remember mentioning that in the first video. I was like, you still get the dies trigger, then you exile it. It's like the only cool thing with this card, honestly, is when you do it with your commander. It's like, oh, thumbs up. That's some value.
Exile it, replace it, go to the command zone. I still get my commander. But you're right. Like the decks that this card would be in, you're like, all right, well, we want to be able to kill our creatures on command. So we have a bunch of sack outlets and then a bunch of ways to pay off creatures dying. That means you're going to be using the graveyard and you're going to be interacting and you're going to be throwing blood gas and nether traders all over the place. And this thing doesn't do anything with those guys. And this is like not a card that ever makes it. You know what it reminds me of? Smothering Abomination, a card I just kind of also don't play. It's okay, but it's in that weird 4-mana spot. I think Disciple of Bolas sometimes falls into that. There's like Skull Sifter, I think the 4-mana 4/3 that makes Eldrazi's also falls into that. It's just this weird clunky spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of just has anti-synergies with any of the decks that would play it.
Yeah, whenever I look at a 4-drop, I'm like, have you seen Yawgmoth?
So next is one of my pet cards, and it's become my pet card, and I've absolutely fallen in love with it.
But it wasn't originally.
It wasn't originally. When it first came out, it was Archon of Cruelty, and we looked at this and we said, yikes.
8 mana, huh?
And we had to target? That's not very good at all. Ooh, I don't know about this card. It's really bad. I'm going to give it a D, whatever. But not that I'm super high in it. No. I think it's a C. I think it's a pretty good card. It actually performs well. Obviously, you're cheating this into play. Like,
oh, yeah.
You're cheating into play somehow with some effect, a reanimate, or any type of thing. And it just is one of the most satisfying effects.
If you resolve this card, it is chef's kiss.
Like, I'm still not saying this card's broken or it's insane.
We're saying it is C level, which we usually say is like a cuttable card that you don't have to play.
Yeah, but
D's you're looking not to play.
Yeah, we're not looking to avoid this card anymore.
Right, that's what
we're not avoiding this card at all costs like we would before. Yeah, I'm happy with what Archon of Cruelty does for my decks. I really like it.
Solid little dude. I mean, for reference, it's better than Shield Dread. I think Shield Dread really
way
sucks.
Better.
Like, so maybe if that helps you kind of visualize where we're at.
Shield Dread is butts. I have that card in the deck. I won't take it out of the deck because I love it, but that card sucks.
Yeah, we were talking, and I was just like, Fleshbag Marauders is better than Shield Dread, right? And then Joe's like, yeah.
It's really bad to think about.
Yikes.
Yeah. Yikes. Fleshbag Marauder is better than Shield Dread. That's how bad that card is.
Slow.
I love the card, and when it's good, sometimes it's really good, but it's very rare that it's good.
Most of the time, it's sack a token, died.
Yep.
Died.
Yeah, exactly. It's also one of the problems. It's like it not only is not that good, but it has a huge target on its chest.
And then there's just all this waiting where, like, with a Fleshbag Marauder, it's like, everybody sacrifice a creature now. Do it. And that can be really good, especially because it's cheap. But it's like, get ready, you're going to sack. And then after that, you over here, get ready, because you're going to have to sack. It's like, oh, man.
Oh, yeah. So Shield Dread, actually, not the card we're talking about. I totally forgot. We were talking about Archon of Cruelty. We got a little off topic.
Shield Dread sucks!
This is the end of the video, though.
This is the anti-Shield Dread video.
This is the end of the video. Special shout-outs to every single one of our patrons. Love you all as much as we can without making them comfortable. Seriously, thank you guys for supporting us. We got a couple shout-outs to do. These are some personal shout-outs for our patrons. The first one, Sebastian Klatt. Thank you so much.
Super good supporter, that Sebastian. Also, Carson Thorsteinsen. They're great, too.
That sounds like a fake name.
I definitely butchered it.
Thorsteinsen?
I ruined it. I'm sorry. That was your one shout-out, too. I can never say the name again.
Yeah, I know. And then Michael Riotman is right after that. I mean, his last name's Riotman.
Is he related to Aaron Frick, the other amazing patron who supports us?
No, and you've made this joke before.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, and then, check the tapes.
I have not.
Yep, and also Grins. I'm so bad. Sekaturchin.
We cut, right? I just said Grins Katurchin, which I think it is, and then you just didn't say any of those syllables.
Whatever. Grins Katurchin.
Let us know.
Which is, I do know. I've mentioned this before. That means that's the Cheshire Cat.
Yes.
In German.
And that makes you think of Devontae Rivera, actually, before we finish these shout-outs, because they're a really nice patron of ours, actually.
Devontae's a name I really like. I don't know what it is. It flows off the tongue with Devontae.
How about this next one?
Eric Little.
Elric, I think.
You know what? There's definitely an L, but Eric, you're awesome.
Change your name, so we can't be wrong. 10 patrons we were wrong about. Dakota Brown, supporter of the channel.
Well, that's true. And we also have Fred Venezuela. His last name is a country? Come on now.
I think it's Valenzuela.
Whatever. Do I sound like someone who pronounces names correctly?
Well, I look like I care. and finally, Apakuki Vave. It does. I mean, that's their name, as far as I can pronounce it. I've taken my pronunciation of that name to its limit.
Not me now. Apologize for all the names we said wrong, which was about all of them.
Probably all of them. Even Elric, which is 5 letters, we got wrong.
If you want to support the Nitpicking Nerds while supporting your addiction to Magic cards, you can go to tcgplayer.com and buy any number of Magic cards you want using our link in the description below. As long as you start with that link, you can purchase all the cards you've ever wanted to purchase at the exact same price that you wanted to purchase them at. And guess what? The nerds get a kickback. That's insane.
Whoa. And if you weren't shopping at dragonshield.com, either the US or the EU link, then you better make a video titled Top 10 Sites I Was Wrong About. Because if you don't go there and support the nerds with the link at the same time, you're missing out on an opportunity to give us money. And why would you ever do that?
Yeah, exactly. You can help the nerds. You can help this YouTube channel grow and get better while also just buying the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Yeah, good sleeves.
Yeah, so let's go to the tidbit. We bought a giant calendar.
Giant calendar. I mean, we can put a picture up here, I think. Get our editor on that.
It's so tough. Yeah, me. It's so tough to like describe how big it is. So yeah, I'll have
5 feet wide by 4 feet tall. I have a very large, like ridiculously large wingspan, and I'm stretching out a little bit. I mean, I guess not literally, but it's more than I would think that I would.
It's a really big calendar. We're visual thinkers.
Yeah,
and
if we could write this down, and I have made lists before, but the problem is.
It's in your phone.
You just have to check your phone. You have to check the notebook. You have to go find it and open it up or keep it somewhere. And it's just it's not as obvious as the wall is now a calendar. What do you have to do today?
The whole entire wall. It's so big. But I guess that's a tidbit of our life. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.